celebrate the wind beneath the wings. Tonight we happily celebrate not the pastor's wife, but Laura Shields. In doing so, we can't help but think about the children that we see so often at church, who she so carefully raising with the help of the big guy. And of course, these kids remind us of times long spent for most of us around Christmas trees and chasing kids doing this and that. So it's just wonderful to have those children. So without further embarrassment, I'd like to hear from Laura Shields.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'll try to fill up the 15 minutes. It's 30 minutes with my 4 years. And I didn't make any notes, because hopefully it's my life and I don't need notes. But I was born in 1977 in Asheville. My parents were Candler, West Asheville. Had 2 older brothers. They were 4 and 6 years older. And the year I was born, my parents started their own business, which I've always admired, that they had a house payment and 3 kids under 6, and still went out on the to do that. But it proved successful, and growing up, my dad's office was in our basement, so he was always home when we got home from school. Mom was there. They could come to all our games and that kind of stuff. My dad's business was, he built highways and interstates for the DOT. And now my brothers have it, and they grew it a lot, so now they do highways, they do subdivisions, they like do an Ingalls pad, or, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, I did bring some pictures. I don't know if we want to pass them around. Here's me as a baby. In 1978.
You're still a baby.
This is a little older at Nag's Head, where we used to go every year. My parents had actually honeymooned there. They got married in New York, and then for their honeymoon they had traveled down the coast and East Coast and did that, and they took us every year until I was about 8, when they bought a lake house at Lake Kiowee. So then we started going there in lieu of the beach. Here's another one. This is one of me and my brothers at the Biltmore House a long time ago that Mom recently did. So Wes and I remember meeting each other in the 6th grade. But after we were married, I was going through a box of pictures at his parents' house, and I pulled out a Little League soccer team picture. And there I was, on the same team with Wes, even though we don't remember that. We actually were on the same soccer team when we were probably 6 or 7. But we met in the 6th grade. And we're friends all through middle school and high school, and started dating our sophomore year of college.
Wow.
So it was, I say we know more than we need to know about each other's younger years. But we did graduate high school together. He went 2 years to Lenore Ryan College and then transferred. I went to NC State my whole time. My dad went there, but my brothers went there, but their wives went there. And if I have any regrets of my whole life, it's college. I hate to say regret because that would imply I'm not happy with where I'm at now, which is not true, but NC State was huge. 28,000 students in the middle of the city, and it was not a good fit for me. So I wish I'd gone to a smaller school, and I wish I had stuck with my original major, which was fish and wildlife, which I had wanted to do since my first trip out to Yellowstone when I was 8 years old. My aunt and uncle lived out in Bozeman, and we went every other summer out west, and when I first saw Yellowstone National Park, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. So that's what I had wanted to do all until that time, but when I got to school, I did that, and then I did civil engineering, and then I needed to just get out of school, so I picked business. I have a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in human resources and a minor in accounting. That's what I ended up with after 4.5 years in a summer school. Not due to failure, but because I kept changing. So when I graduated from college, I'll pass this one around too. This is me and Wes when we were dating. And this is my college graduation. I didn't have a job, but it worked out okay because my parents by then were going to Florida for a few months in the winter. And I graduated in December, so I went and worked for the family business for a couple months. And then I got a job in Asheville for a benefits company. They provided benefits when they deregulated the phone companies. It couldn't be the big ones, there's all these little ones now. This company provided the benefits for all those little telephone companies. And I worked in the retirements division, figuring pensions, or payouts in divorce, or that kind of thing. But it was short-lived because I got that job in June. Wes and I got engaged in August, and got married in December, and he was in seminary in Tennessee. So, here's one of our wedding pictures. We got married at Trinity Episcopal in Asheville.
Beautiful.
It snowed that day. I don't know what else to say about it. We did break up for a time there.
Before the wedding.
Before the wedding. And there are two sides to the story. Since I'm the only one here, I'm going to tell you my side. We had dated a couple years, and I said, we don't need to get engaged, but I want to know that's where we're headed. And he said, I can't do that. And I said, see you later.
Oh,
so, he tells it a different way. But anyway, we came back around.
I like your story.
Yeah, you put it down.
Stick to it. Stick to it.
As my mom used to say, kiss or get off the pot.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he came back around. And we got engaged and married pretty quickly. We were at Sewanee, Tennessee. He was there the full 3 years. I was there 2.5 years. Here's his seminary graduation. And us, that was it. Huh?
Is that Wes?
I think so. So in seminary, you're typically
At least she didn't
sponsored
say
by a
oops.
diocese, and then when you graduate, you're somewhat obligated, if they have helped you, to go where they place you back in your diocese. Unfortunately for us, that was Gastonia, North Carolina, which was not, we didn't love it there. And for other reasons. Anyway, we were there 11 months. We did buy our first house there. That's about all I can say. But Wes got a call from a priest. Maybe it was the bishop. Anyway, a priest from Hickory was up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The church an hour and a half south of Jackson Hole, Pinedale, Wyoming, was looking for somebody. They heard about Wes. They called. We said, why not? Went interviewed, he got it. So we moved out there. I think that was June of 2004. Well, in Gastonia, I did work for the city in the low-income housing department, administering federal grants on behalf of the city. So we moved to Wyoming. That was the best 5 years of our life. We had never been anywhere better. It was beautiful. People were relaxed. We got to do amazing things. These are almost all pictures from Wyoming. We did a lot of hiking there. This was before kids. Lots of fishing. We had 2 horses and a mule. We did a lot of riding. We got friends who had ranches. We got to help move cattle. We did snow machining, skiing. We had a drift boat. We had 4-wheelers. I mean, life was good. You have no kids, both gainfully employed. I worked for a oil and gas company out there. Ultra Petroleum or Ultra Resources. It was kind of like a shell. There was a huge gas boom at the time, which worked out well for us. But Shell was there, Encana was there, Questar's there, Ultra was there. Anyway, I worked for Ultra, and it was an accounting job, but not for money. I was keeping track of the natural gas that we produced or harvested, and then the byproduct of natural gas is oil. So we sold the oil as well. So I had to keep track of, that was my job, just keeping track of what we produced out of there. I did leave that before we left Wyoming to be a real estate appraiser. But I didn't quite make it all the way through to certification because Emma was born. So when we decided to have kids, we applied for adoption and tried the natural way, and adoption happened first. And it was an amazing event for us. I don't know how much everybody knows about adoption, but there's a lot of paperwork ahead of time. You have to meet with the social worker and talk about your marriage, your finances, background checks, references, and then at some point you turn in a book about your life. If you're adopting an infant in the States, I should say that. You turn in a book and it's all about you, and prospective birth parents look through those books and they choose you. So we were not quite done with all our paperwork, but we had our books and the agency let us turn them in. So we still lacked one visit with the social worker to get fully approved. And 6 days after turning our book in, well, I should say 5 days after turning our book in, somebody at the time, Wes was doing a full-time church and then reopened a church about 45 minutes away. We were at that little church, and one family came up to us and said, "We're done with our car seat, do you want it?" And I said, "Oh no, they say it's like an average 2-year wait." And she said, "Just take it, stick it in your closet." And the next day the adoption agency called.
Wow.
And Emma was born. So 6 hours away in Cheyenne. We were in Pinedale, she was in Cheyenne. So we swung by the social worker's house in Laramie that morning at 8 a.m.
So you left at what time?
Like 4 a.m. and did our last visit, which she typed up between Laramie and Cheyenne, and got to the director of the agency, and we got her.
That day?
How old was she?
Day and a half old,
Oh my gosh.
Day and a half.
a day and a half. Yeah.
Wow.
She was born at home and was cold and had meconium aspiration. So anyway, when they called us, they said, the nurses said, plan for a week, you might have to go to Denver with her. So we got there, she was in the NICU, which in that hospital, there weren't different, all the babies were in the same area, and they said we couldn't hold her. She was hooked up to everything, but she had a feeding tube and oxygen, but we could talk to her and we could rub her. So we did, and about an hour later, the nurse came in and she said, all her numbers are improving. I talked to the doctor, she's gonna let you know. So we did, we got the feeding tube out, and that was Friday, and we went home on Sunday. She didn't go to Denver, she did have oxygen for like 6 weeks, but otherwise she was fine. So that was our beautiful story of our first baby. When she was a year, when we were in Wyoming, we struggled with, we loved it there, but we weren't near our family. And especially as we were having children, was it fair that the children would know their grandparents very well? So we were thinking of coming back home, but not quite ready. So we went to Boothbay Harbor, Maine, which was another, we thought, destination place, something different, that we never lived in a place like that before on the coast of Maine. So Emma was a year and a half old, but a month before we moved, right after, I may have the dates wrong, but soon after he turned in his notice, we had already reapplied. When Emma was a year old, we reapplied for adoption again, because you had to wait till your first one was a year old. And right after Wes turned in his notice, we got a call that a birth mother wants to meet you. And we said, does she know we're leaving Wyoming? And they said yes. I told her she still wants to meet me. So we went down and met her. She was actually pregnant at the time, which was not the way it happened with Emma. And she picked us. So we moved to Maine in September, and Maddie was born October 1st. So we flew back and got her. So Wes had only been there like a month. So all of you know our tragic story, I guess. So on December 11th, she died of SIDS at our house with us there. So at a time when we should have been meeting new people, making friends in our new town, we were home grieving.